Welcome to your favorite devotional studying the works of Henry George. We continue with chapter 3. The title is something like Compensation for Landowners. George writes, "It is not merely a robbery in the past, it is a robbery in the present. A robbery, and the robbery here that he is speaking of is land monopoly or private property in land and rent seeking. A robbery that deprives of their birthright the infants that are now coming into the world. And think, none of us were even yet, we were like the children of the children of the children of these infants. Why should we hesitate about making short work of such a system? Because I was robbed yesterday and the day before and the day before that? Is it any reason that I should suffer myself to be robbed today and tomorrow? Any reason that I should conclude that the robber has acquired a vested right to rob me? I don't know a lot about my family history. I know that on my father's side, my Jewish family immigrated here in the early 20th century. Um, and then on my mother's side, we've been in Tennessee for a very long time. And we did have a farm at some point. Well, I guess we did up until my mom's generation. Um, we lost the farm. Mm, just thinking about the, I'm sure I have ancestors who were big ol' robber barons or whatever, landlords. Anyway, do you come from a line of landlords, or if you have land now, did you acquire that in this in in your own life? It is possible to be above George's wedge in just one life, but is that fair for everyone below George's wedge? Like I was talking yesterday, you know, I may be the top dog. You may look at me and be like, that dog is top. So if we're on an island and there's 100 of us, and I'm the top dog, does that mean? Well, let's go back to my Gone with the Wind uh, blog post, Gone with the Land. I may be the top dog in all the South. Does that mean uh, when we all go out to pick cotton, I get all of your cotton as well as my own cotton? Well, I'll leave you with enough so that you can survive. No, no, it does not mean that. If I'm the top dog, that means sure, I can outpick everyone else when it comes to picking cotton, so I'll have more cotton. But each cotton picker should get the cotton that they themselves pick. We don't. There may be a hierarchy, but we should not be organizing society so that the winner takes all. And winner takes all is what happens when we let the winners, however they come to win, whether that's through actual force or that's through some kind of weird competition, not even necessarily a weird competition, um, they shouldn't get all of the land because no one should get all of the land or any of the land unless they compensate the rest of us. All right, back to George. If the land belonged to the people, why continue to permit landowners to take the rent or compensate them in any manner for the loss of rent? Consider what rent is. It does not arise spontaneously from land. It is due to nothing that the landowners have done. Again, this is strictly how George defined rent, which is the return to land, by which we mean the exclusive access to land, the access to land. It is not uh, It's not what you spend hard labor harvesting from land, it is just the excess. It represents a value created by the whole community. Let the landholders have it if you please, all that the possession of the land would give them in the absence of the rest of the community. But rent, the creation of the whole community, necessarily belongs to the whole community. My intonation here wasn't quite that good. Let the landholders have, if you please, all that possession of the land would give them in the absence of the rest of the community. But rent, the creation of the whole community, necessarily belongs to the whole community. I would have liked just a comma and a lowercase b there. Try the case of the landholders by the maxims of the common law by which the rights of man and man are determined. That seems like another typo. Man and woman are determined. The common law, we are told, is the perfection of reason, and certainly the landowners cannot complain of its decision. Man and woman. All right, so what would we say? What would common law says? For it has been built up by, and the common law, we are told, and certainly the landowners cannot complain of its decision, for it has been built up by and for landowners. Okay. Now, what does the law allow to the innocent possessor when the land for which he paid his money is adjudged rightfully to belong to another? Nothing at all. Using common law in this case, common law would also probably say that somebody who rightfully purchased land gets to have it forever. So appealing to common law is a little fraught. But this does harken back to what I was saying about what law does when people accidentally purchase stolen goods. George is now talking about that. That he purchased in good faith gives him no right or claim whatever. And law also is when you purchase in bad faith, like when you know you're buying stolen goods, then you are an accomplice to the crime. You could get in trouble. So there's something to be said about all these speculators out there who are buying all these houses knowing that they're squeezing the low class of society that is not innocent. Not innocent at all. The law does not concern itself with the intricate question of compensation to the innocent purchaser. However, just like a starving man may steal a pair of candlesticks in France, that's from Les Miserables, you could understand how somebody who grew up starving, quote unquote, or just living a very poor life, that when they finally get a chance to buy some land, steal some land, it seems much less egregious. The law does not say, as John Stuart Mill says, the law does not concern itself with the intricate question of compensation to the innocent purchaser. That must be what John Stuart Mill said earlier. The law does not say, as John Stuart Mill says, that land belongs to A, therefore B, who has thought himself the owner, has no right to anything but the rent or compensation for its saleable value. Yeah. John Stuart Mill says the land belongs to the Irish, therefore the land owners are supposed to have the right to just the rent. John Stuart Mill. Erring. For that would be indeed like a famous fugitive slave case decision in which the court was said to have given the law to the north and the nigger to the south. The law simply says the land belongs to A. Let the sheriff put him in possession. It gives the innocent purchaser of a wrongful title no claim. It gives him no compensation. And not only this, it takes from him all the improvements that he has in good faith made upon the land. You may have paid a high price for land, making every exertion to see that the title is good. You may have held it in undisturbed possession for years without thought or hint of an adverse claimant, made it fruitful by your toil, or erected upon it a costly building of greater value than itself, or a modest home in which you hope, surrounded by the fig trees you have planted and the vines you have dressed, to pass your declining days. Um, yeah, the law simply says the land belongs to A. Let the sheriff put him in possession. It gives the innocent purchaser of a wrongful title no claim. Doesn't chop off their heads, though. It allows him no compensation. And not only this, it takes from him all the improvements that he has in good faith made upon the land. Yeah, you even lose. Yeah. Well, you may have paid a high price for land, making every exertion that the title is good. You may have held it in an understood position of views, but the thought of him it made it fruitful by the toil of modest. Yet, if quirk, gammon, and snap can mouse out a technical flaw in your parchment, Quirk, Gammon, and Snap. What a law firm. I think are these this is joke law firm. I get it now, George. Took me a moment. I think unless I don't think that's a famous law firm from the 1870s. But if they can find a technical flaw in your parchments, which I recently learned parchments are actually made of like intestines, pig intestines or something, not paper. Or hunt up some forgotten heir who never dreamed of his rights, not merely the land, but all your improvements may be taken away from you. See, this is weird why it's appealing to current law for the bit about um, how to handle illegal possession of land, but then we reject the laws about, enforcing the private property and land by causing this house to be passed as though it were capital to a descendant. Um, anyway, not merely the land, but all your improvements may be taken away from you. All right, in this case, the improvements would go to that heir as legitimate capital. And not merely that, according to the common law, when you have surrendered the land and given up your improvements, you may be called upon to account for the profits you derived from the land during the time you had it. I guess this whole argument still sort of works. Okay, it's like, consider our two common law laws. One, that whoever has land should be able to keep it forever and keep other people off of it. Two, if something is stolen, then whoever has it should have to give it back, even if they then received it in trade somehow, it has to be given back. And then if you have a third idea, which is that the land that we just said can keep forever and ever, or that's yours. If the third claim then that law makes is that land can be rightfully gotten, um, then it all is consistent. But if we consider all land as being stolen, then we have to apply the law of stolen goods to land and ultimately give it back to all the people. But if you think land can be rightfully gotten, um, then you're good. Like that's the fundamental value issue that you're either persuaded of or not when you start thinking about Georgism. Is there a right to some sort of exclusive individual private property and land? Can somebody actually claim land? Um, George continues, or wherever we were. Not merely that, according to the common law, when you have surrendered the land and given up your improvements, you may be called upon to account for the profits you derived from the land during the time you had it. Now, if we apply this case to of the people versus the landowners, the same maxims of justice that have been formulated by landowners into law and are applied every day in English and American courts to disputes between man and man. We shall not only think of, I guess that earlier line of man and man was intentional then. He's just talking like between men. Between man and man is clear to me. And we shall not only think, all right, if we apply this case to the people versus the landowners, yeah, maybe we should take this whole, let's go on Judge Judy. The same maxims of justice that have been formulated by landowners into law and are applied every day in English and American courts to disputes between man. Yeah, everyone should just start suing their landlord. I'm going to sue my dad. And are applied every day in English and American courts to disputes. Of course, my dad charges me no rent, so it would be tough to say that he is unfairly benefiting. Don't want to besmirch my father's name here. We shall not only think of giving the landholders any compensation for the land, but my dad does rent out our old house, so they could sue him. Maybe they'll sue me if I inherit that house. But shall take all the improvements and whatever else they may have as well. But I do not propose, and I do not suppose, that anyone else will propose to go so far. It is sufficient if the people resume the ownership of the land, let the landowners retain their improvements and personal property in secure possession. What? What is George saying? And in this measure of justice would be no oppression, no injury to any class. The great cause of the present unequal distribution of wealth, with the suffering, degradation, and waste that it entails, would be swept away. Even landholders would share in the general gain. The gain of even the large landholders would be a real one. The gain of the small landholders would be enormous. For in welcoming justice, did he not say? For in welcoming justice, men welcome the handmaid of love. Peace and plenty follow in her train, bringing their good gifts not to some but to all. How true this is, we shall hereafter see. If in this chapter, yeah, so all right, he's like just teasing us. He's not proposing to take away the land and chop off the heads of all the landlords. He's saying it is sufficient if the people resume ownership of the land, and then the landowners retain their improvements and personal property in secure possession. And in this measure of justice, I sort of, I thought he was about to say his famous line about, let people keep the land so long as we get like the kernel. It's, or however he phrases it. We'll get there. So the people get the land. The landowners can keep their improvements and personal property, and in this measure of justice would be no oppression, no injury to any class. The great cause of the present unequal distribution of wealth, with the suffering, degradation, and waste that it entails, would be swept away. Even landholders would share in the general gain. The gain of even the large landholders would be a real one. The gain of the small landholders would be enormous. For in welcoming justice, men welcome the handmaid of love. Peace and plenty follow in her train, bringing their good gifts not to some but to all. How true this is we shall hereafter see. If in this chapter I have spoken of justice and expediency as if justice were one thing and expediency another, it has been merely to meet the objections of those who so talk. Injustice is the highest and truest expediency. The best time for justice was a year ago. The next best time is right now. Cool. See you next time.